What's happening, YouTube? Back in the day, gamer here. Thanks for tuning into my channel, and today I'm coming. What do you mean it's not my channel? Whose channel is it? Of course it is. Pico wants me to do a bumper? What's that? Why would he want me to be on his channel? Alright, whatever. Just keep rolling. What's happening, YouTube? I'm back in the day, gamer, and you're watching Chris Pico, the old-ass retro gamer. What does that say? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? You don't know what it means either? Neither of us know what it means. You want me to say it? Doesn't that sound stupid to you? Alright, I'm not gonna argue. Just keep rolling, okay? Remember Kenna, suckers! Happy? We done now? Amateurs.
Hey everybody, Chris, the old-ass retro gamer here. Welcome to the second episode in my video game collection live streams 2022 about my Sega Genesis collection. Last episode, I was asked how many games I had. I think I have just shy of 200 total. 200 Genesis games total. Which is not bad. I know I'm not going for a complete collection or anything like that. So, what's up, Mondane? Yay! Eyes is here. Yeah, I'm not going for a complete collection or anything like that. I'm just collecting what I like, what I had back in the day that I enjoyed, games that I always wanted to own but never had a chance to get back when, the Genesis was actually the thing. So, yeah, I have quite a lot of games to talk about here because, as you can see, there are two completely empty shelves right here on my wall, or my shelving unit. And that's where all the games that I'm going to talk about tonight came from. Still got two more to go down below, and that is for next week. So, shall we get started? So, first game we have is Gyrus, and this is not that reproduction that's been going around lately. This is the real deal. I picked this up at the Midwest Gaming Classic, I think in 2018? I think it was 2018. And I actually got this from a friend of Cardboard Zero. Cardboard Zero was sharing a table at the convention with this other guy. I know Cardboard Zero was selling stuff because he wanted to go back to school, so he's selling some expensive games. I did buy some from him to help him out. And the guy that was sitting next to him had a bunch of games that I have wanted to add to my collection for a long, long time. One of them was Turtles 4. I probably should have bought it because it was for a very good price, but I decided to go with Gyrus instead since I don't see this very often. I see Turtles 4 all the time. Yes, it's always overpriced, but Gyrus is something that has eluded me, at least up until this point in collecting. It's by Renovation. Renovation games for the Genesis tend to go for quite a bit of money lately, at least. And what is it? It is a horizontally scrolling shmup that is absolutely bonkers. I knew about this game back in the day. My memory is a little foggy on this, but I think I played this at Funkoland. They had those playtest stations in the stores. And I do believe I played this, and I was kind of like, it's a shmup. I was expecting something else. Not really into shmups back in the day. But nowadays, this is right up my alley, and I played it once I got home from the convention to make sure that the cartridge worked, and oh boy, did it. It is super fun. It is also really hard, but it's kind of fantastic. Most of the shmups that came out from Renovation are pretty fantastic. You can see some of these bosses here. They take up like the entire screen. It's nuts. I love it. I'm glad I got it, and it's not that reproduction, like I said, that's been going around lately. I think, what is it, Retrobit was selling it or something? Not interested. Now we have another Renovation game. This one I have played at great length because this was on my Diamonds. Oh no, was it my Diamonds in the Rough video that I did for the Genesis about a year and a half ago. And that is Gain Ground. I did not realize that this is an arcade port. So what is it? It is a shmup of sorts. And what it is you have like 4 different characters you can choose from, and it's a single screen. There's a certain amount of villains on the screen. There's also these little statues you need to pick up, and those represent characters that you can add to your roster. You need to destroy all the characters or the villains on the screen and still have possession of that statue that represents the person that you're trying to add to your party. If you die and that person is in your possession, that person is no longer available. You complete that stage or that screen, you go on to another one, whole new scenario. And each person or each character that you can play has a different weapon, a different attack type. Some of the weapons go long range, some of them are short range, some of them arc over things. And it's kind of a little bit of a strategy to it. It's super fun. I played this for a great long while when I was recording footage for it for that video. I remember when I was having a blast doing it. And I kind of want to find the arcade cabinet of this somewhere so I could try it. Never knew that this was an arcade game at all. I had never seen it before in my life. Can't afford the original, guys. Like I said, I got that for a really good price at the Midwest Gaming Classic, so that's the reason I picked it up. But nowadays, yeah, I'm glad that I got it when I did, because Gyruss is going for quite a bit of money nowadays. Next up is a Psygnosis game. Had to get it because I was going for all those Psygnosis games for all the consoles. And we have Galahad. This was released by Electronic Arts. Electronic Arts released a lot of Psygnosis games on the Genesis. And this is another side-scrolling beat-em-up platformer light RPG. And it's all right. It's just that most of the Psygnosis games of the time, the character controls are not the greatest. The character moves like a little too fast. Jumps are a little too floaty. Sometimes it feels like they're walking on ice, so the platforming isn't that great. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It is actually pretty fun, and I need to spend some more time with this one. I'm going to try in 2023, since that's only about 3 months away. 2022 just kind of came and went. To probably play through all of my Psygnosis games. I have quite a number of them, and I really should play through them because I spent all that time looking for them and trying to collect them. I should probably beat them at some point. So, yeah, there's that. And the cool thing is, I just looked at it. I forgot that the cartridge, the Electronic Arts cartridges for the Genesis are always like that oversized style, has kind of like a metallic paint on for where it says Galahad. It's kind of strange. It's like a copper paint. It's kind of neat. Galloping Ghost has Game Granola. I need to go to Galloping Ghost then, don't I? Next time we all hang out, maybe we should go there. I've never actually been. I hear a lot of people talking about it, and I kind of need to go. Here is, I do believe, a first-generation Genesis game from Sega, and that is Galaxy Force 2. I remember I played the original Galaxy Force in the arcade, and that was one of those weird, like Sega was doing for Afterburner. It was kind of like you're sitting in a cockpit of a plane, and as you're pulling and moving the joystick around, which is like the throttle and everything, the cabinet would like rock back and forth and turn and all that kind of stuff. Well, Galaxy Force was the same kind of thing. It was like you were sitting in the cockpit of a spaceship, and it kind of moved. This was at like the Nickel arcade that I used to go to all the time in my hometown or close to my hometown. And I thought it was kind of strange that thing was still working. And it had I was an adult. I was about 220 some pounds sitting inside this contraption, and it's spinning around like it ain't no thing. But I did not know that there was a sequel, and maybe this was just specifically for the Genesis. But it is a behind the spaceship shmup, kind of like Star Fox. And it's actually pretty fun. It's a little clunky because, like I said, first generation game. They usually, there was still trying to figure out the programming for the console. But it's pretty cool. I picked this up at Half Price Books for like a steal. I got this for like $10. Wait, I've never been to Galloping Ghost. I hear everyone talking about going and all that, and I just never got around to doing it. Just hasn't happened. I absolutely love this next game. I've talked about the first game in my top 10 NES games video response to Captain Algebra that I did a while back. I've talked about this in a couple of videos, including a video on Captain Algebra's channel, and that is Gauntlet 4. I do believe this also comes in a regular old clamshell snap case. I have the paper or the cardboard one. Doesn't matter. The game is still fantastic. This was released by Tengen. I don't know if this is actually based on an arcade game or if this was designed specifically for the home consoles. I never have seen a Gauntlet 4 or a Gauntlet 3, to be completely honest, in the arcade. but it is the same setup as your standard Gauntlet style game, which is a top-down dungeon crawler. 4 players. You get to pick all these different characters. Each has different weapons and different abilities. What is it? The warrior, the Valkyrie, the archer, and the magician or the wizard. And this one has some boss battles and stuff like that. But the thing I like the most about this, number one, it looks the best out of all the out of all of the Gauntlet games out there at the time. This looks and sounds the best. It also plays the best. It also has some of the best music on the Genesis. And that was one of the reasons why I was talking about this on Captain Algebra's channel. He was talking about Genesis games that have great music. And this game has fantastic music that kind of doesn't sound like it comes from that Sega chip, that's in the console itself. It is fantastic. I absolutely love it. One of my all-time favorite Genesis games. I'm super stoked that I got that. I picked that up. I had it back in the day. I used to play it on my Nomad at my night job that I used to have in the 90s. And when I got back into collecting, that was one of the first games I was trying to add back to my collection because I loved it so much. And I got it for, I think, $25 or something. And then I went to Gen Con. This was probably in 2015, 2016. I can't remember the last time I went. And Half Price Books had a booth there, and they had a section of video games, and they were selling that for. And this is before COVID. This is long before COVID. They're selling that for $100, complete in the box. And I giggled out loud, and the person that was running the booth kind of looked at me funny, and I was just like, "Yeah, that price, nobody's going to buy that." They're also charging like over $100 for a copy of ET. And that was another one where I was like, no, there's no way. Calling Seth, and we're going to drive down Canopy and run to... I accept. I will go willingly. It will be completely consensual, TJ. I picked this up at Midwest Gaming Classic last year, 2021, the one that happened in November. I had been looking for this for a while. I almost bought it at Video Games Then and Now, my local retro shop. It was a little too expensive, and I said I'd come back and maybe try to talk the guy down the next time I came, because a lot of the stuff that's in like their case, that's expensive stuff, usually doesn't sell right away. So I was like, I'll come back in a couple weeks and I'll talk the guy down, because I just didn't feel like doing it at that moment. And when I came back, it was gone. Luckily, I found this even cheaper at the Midwest Gaming Classic, which was surprising because the prices at the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2021 were outrageous. But we're talking General Chaos. This is another one of those Electronic Arts Genesis games that has this super oversized case for some reason. I hate that they do this. I normally thought it was because they had a massive manual. And this one does have a thicker manual, but it's not like the ones that you would get with Buck Rogers or Starflight or Technomancer or whatever it is, or was it Technomage or whatever that game is? Technoclash. Spoilers. But this is it's a strategy style game where it's like one army against another, red and blue, and it always looked super fun to me. I have not played it since the time I brought it home from the convention to check it. Can't talk, to make sure it worked. I played it for about 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, it works, we're good. And I haven't played it since. I really should sit down and try to get into it, because I've always thought this looks super fun. All that effort I went into getting it, finally find it, and I don't play it. That makes sense for me. That's right on right. That's good for my character. That makes sense. We have Ghostbusters, the good Ghostbusters game. Out of all the ones that had come out at this point, I think the only one that was good was New Ghostbusters 2 in Japan and in the UK, but we never got that over here. But in the US, this was definitely the best Ghostbusters game we had gotten so far. And this one is a side-scrolling platformer, shoot 'em up kind of, where you get to pick between the 3 OG Ghostbusters. Why Winston isn't in here is stupid. But you have Ray, Egon, and Peter to choose from. Each of them plays pretty much the same. And you're just going around through different houses and killing all the ghosts and then fight a boss and move on. But it's actually super, super fun. So can't complain. But that is a winner. Winner, chicken dinner. Technomancer was Dreamcast. What are you talking about? Technomancer. Oh, when I was trying to think of Technoclash, yeah, Technomancer. Technomancer's good. Next up, we have Ghouls and Ghosts, probably the best. I want to say this is tied with the Super Nintendo one. Ghouls and Ghosts port, and it's Ghosts and Goblins amped up to 1,000,000, and it's super fun and colorful and awesome platformer, beat 'em ups. I guess beat 'em up. I don't know. Platformer, I guess, is what you would describe this as. It's not really a run and gun, but this one is incredibly fair compared to the Nintendo game, the original. This is the sequel. The Nintendo game is completely unfair. This one is a fair challenge. This one is easy to play through. You could get through it in probably a day if you just give it a shot and realize how to play it properly and get the techniques down. It's not bad at all. It is actually amazing compared. Like I play this and the Super Nintendo one in equal measure. I think they're both great. They're both the best versions, or they're both the best games. Like they're tied for the best games in the series. How about that? There's a fan hack that puts Winston back in. I want it. It's stupid that they left him out. I need to trade this in and get a full-on regular version of this, but I got this in a lot. My brother, when he was still living in LA, one of his friends was moving, and I was trying to get rid of a bunch of stuff. My brother went to help him move and saw that he had a box of Genesis stuff that he was trying to get rid of. And he's like, hey, my brother collects video game stuff. Would you want to sell this to him? And he was like, fine. So he took a picture of it, sent it to me, and it was a Model 2, and it was a whole bunch of games. Zombies Ate My Neighbors was in there, complete in the box, plus a bunch of like shovelware crap. Like this was in there, Family Feud. There's like 2 or 3 other games. I think Streets of Rage was in there, and I was like, I don't know, $50. And my brother goes, like a minute went by, and he goes, yeah, he'll buy it for 50, or he'll take $50. I'm like, okay, fine. I was like, $50 was as much as like Zombies Ate My Neighbors was going for, so I got a deal. And out of all of them, the only one I kept was Golden Axe because I ended up getting the Super Nintendo version of Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which I prefer over the Genesis one. But this is the Sega Classics version. This is like the greatest hits version of Golden Axe, and I am not happy that I have this. I would rather just have the standard version, but for the time being, this will do. I still think it's funny that they were releasing like these greatest hits ones. Blah, 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 blah. But it's a fantastic beat 'em up featuring like 3 characters, almost ripped off from Gauntlet. You have a warrior, a Valkyrie, and a dwarf with an axe. And each of them has like their own attacks, their own magical attacks, like screen clearing attacks and all that. And you're going up against Death Adder. There's beasts that you can knock their riders off and then mount the beast and ride it around for a little while to get some extra attack power. It's fantastic. It's like I said, this was a first generation Genesis game. So this is a port of an arcade game. The port isn't the greatest, but it's super fun and it's very playable. I like it a lot. And then we have the sequel, Golden Axe 2. I don't think this is based on the Return or the Revenge of Death Adder or whatever it is. I think this is just its own thing. And it's just more of the same from the first game. Just a little bit better graphics, a little bit better sound and stuff like that. And I don't remember if there is another character in this one or not. I think it's still just the original 3. It's the Barbarian, the Valkyrie, and the Dwarf. But whatever. It's just more of the same, but it's better. The one we didn't get over here, you mount the beast. The one we didn't get over here is the third game, and that's Golden Axe 3. This is a repro that I got from, is it on here? Oh, did I get this from, I got this from Toy Saurus Games. I was talking about him in the last stream. I buy his repros off of Instagram all the time. This is one of the few that didn't come with a manual, but it does come with this rad orange translucent cart, which is pretty rad. Golden Axe 3 for some reason never came out over here. It came out in Japan, but never here. And this is a vast improvement over the other games in the series. There's different characters now. There's like a cat person that you can play as. They shown up here. Yeah, they're shown back here in the background riding a mount. And it's super fun. I play this one, I think, the most out of the 3. Why Sega never wanted to release this over here, I can't tell you, but they should have. It is very it's graphically better than the original 2. Sound wise, it's better than the original 2. Play wise, it's better. And like I said, there's more characters to choose from, so you got more variety. It's fantastic. Get a repro of it if you can. I love it. That's my favorite of the 3. And then we have Green Dog, the Beach Surfer. Dude, I haven't put much time into this one, but it's a platformer where you're playing as, I do believe it's based off of a real surfer's like persona or something. But yeah, it's a platformer. You're playing as this like weird looking surfer guy. whatever. And I think your weapon that you throw is a frisbee. It's all right. Got this dirt cheap. Don't remember how much it was because it was a while ago. But it is complete, so there's that. Oh, the Golden Axe collection. I never got that. I have one of the Sega collections. I have the Sonic Genesis one. I don't know if it's on there or not. I have to look. Here's an absolute classic. The first game from Treasure. We got Gunstar Heroes. I picked this up on a whim back in the day. I had seen some ads for it, I think, in the magazines, and I thought it looked kind of like Contra. And I'm like, I love Contra. I'll probably like that one. So I ended up picking it up at Funkoland. And I absolutely loved it. I remember telling all of my friends, this game you absolutely need to have. It is fantastic. It's like Contra, like taken to the extreme because it is super fast-paced. You kind of have weapons that are comparable to what you get in a Contra game, but you can combine them. Like you can take two of them and combine them in different ways, and you get a new weapon out of it. And like it's like there's tons of bosses. It's almost like a boss rush type of game. But like the effects in here, the graphics, the music, everything about it is just insanity. I absolutely love it. It's one of my all-time favorite Genesis games. If I did like a top 10 Genesis game video at any point, this would probably be on that list. I absolutely enjoy it to death. And I play this one. This is, out of all the games I do have for my Genesis, this one is one of the ones that gets the most play. I absolutely love it. And it put like Treasure on the map for me. From this point on, I was like, any game released by Treasure, I'm definitely looking into. And then they never released Alien Soldier over here for some reason. Made me a Treasure fan too, bruh. Making me wish I never sold my copy. I love that game. I love that game so much. And I got that off of Facebook. I think I got it from my buddy Felix the Brett. He, like, when he gets like lots of games with a lot of doubles in them, he'll usually like send me a picture and be like, what do you want? And he tends to do it right when I have money to spend, like my bonus, my yearly bonus from work came in, and my tax return has just shown up. It's like he knows that I have money to spend. And he's like, what do you want out of this lot? And I'm like, you son of a bitch. Here's another EA game. I picked this one up when I was out with Captain Algebra. He came to visit. It was during COVID, so this is probably 2020, late 2020, I want to say. And I picked up a copy of The Haunting starring Poltergeist. This is another one of those EA games with that thick with 2 C's box. Only thing was when I got it, it didn't have the manual. I ended up getting it off of eBay dirt cheap so I can complete the game. Why it needs this thick ass box and the manual is that thin, I have no fucking clue. I don't understand like the way EA did this. Like they had these thick ones and they had the you're going to see a thin one in a bit. In like 3 games time, you're going to see one of their super thin ones. I don't know why they kept changing the box size, why they needed to not use the standard one. These need to stand out on the shelf. No, they don't. They just take up extra shelf space, you dope. But whatever. It's a really fun isometric view game where you're playing as a ghost who's kind of like Beetlejuice, and you are trying to scare people out of different houses. And you do that by possessing things in the house, and you'll see like a fear meter for each person. There's usually like a mother, a father, and like a kid living in the house, and you need to do specific things to scare them enough to get them to leave the house. And once you do that, you can go on to the next one. And if you run out of ectoplasm, which is like your currency in order to do the scares, you have to go down to this underworld and collect some ectoplasm down there that you can go back up and do it again, try again. It's really fun. It's challenging, but I enjoy it because the scares that you can do in the game are really funny at times. So I highly recommend this one. Apparently you can do 2-player because there's two characters down there, 2 poltergeists. I didn't know you can do 2-player in this. That's strange, but whatever. Love this game. Got this from Nintendo. He was selling some games he didn't want anymore, and I had always wanted this because I remember like we didn't get a Genesis early on, like when it first came out. We got a Genesis like 2 years after it came out, and there were kids at school that had them or had a Genesis, and they would bring those posters that came with the games that have all the games that are going to be coming out or are available for the Genesis listed on it. And I remember looking at one that one of my friends had, and I was like, this game looks interesting. I want to know what it's all about. Didn't have Genesis to play it, so no one I knew had this game either, which was kind of sad. And I have not owned it until I bought it off of Nintendo. And it's Herzog Zwei, I guess, if you would talk German. And if I remember correctly, it is a strategy game mixed with a shmup or something. I can't really remember. But I always thought it looked interesting. The pictures that they used on that poster made it look like I needed to have it. And it looks kind of like Thunder Force 2, like the overhead sections of Thunder Force 2 where you're like, kind of like free roaming. But from what I understand, it's kind of like a strategy game too. I have not put a lot of time into it. I should probably do that. But that's like a first generation Genesis game. Needed the cache and space. Ooh. This is the only Mega Drive game I own right now. Like a real Mega Drive, not like a reproduction of one, but a real Mega Drive game. You can see it right there. Mega Drive. And that is Hokuto no Ken. I talked about it in my Nintendo streams or my NES streams that I'm trying to get all of the Hokuto no Ken or Fist of the North Star games available for the consoles, regardless if it's an import or not. And this is actually the game Last Battle. We did get this over here in a censored form because Fist of the North Star, if you've ever watched the anime or read the manga, it's a martial arts action drama story where all the martial artists know specific techniques that, like, they can punch you in the chest and your head will explode kind of thing. Or they'll, like, stick a finger in your neck and next thing you know, like, your brain is shooting out your ears or your, intestines are shooting out your ass kind of thing. It's nuts. And some of that stuff was in the Japanese version, in the Japanese version of this. And the thing is like when you kill a person, when you punch them, their head will explode. They took that out of the American version, the Last Battle. They renamed it the Last Battle because they didn't think anyone would know what Fist of the North Star was. I did, because I was reading the manga at the time. So yeah, it's pretty cool. If you like the game Last Battle, it's the exact same thing. It's just got a little bit of gore in it. I like how the Genesis games or the Mega Drive games are. There's kind of like a curved top instead of like the angled top like a Genesis game has. Kind of neat. But yeah, had to have it because Fist of the North Star. Then we have Home Alone, and the reason I never picked this one up back in the day was because I had bought the Super Nintendo Home Alone game, and I was very, very disappointed in it. I hated it, actually. I thought it was the worst thing ever, and I was like, I wish I could get my money back. I bought it at the Kmart where I worked, and they didn't have that policy that the Electronic Arts or EB Games had, or the Electronics Boutique had, where it was like you buy a game, and if you don't like it within 3 days, you can bring it back and exchange it for something else. Kmart didn't do that. Kmart was like, if it's opened, it's yours. So I had to get rid of it. I ended up selling that at Funkoland. But the Genesis one was actually like released by Sega, and it's a completely different game. And what it is you play as Kevin, and you go to all the different houses in the neighborhood trying to do specific things to get the wet bandits out of the house by setting traps and all that kind of stuff. And then once you beat one house, you walk out, and there's an overworld between of the neighborhood, and you get in your sled, and you have to go to the next house that's available and do the same thing there. It's not bad. It's not great either. It's definitely an improvement over all the other Home Alone games that we had at the time. So I had to get that because licensed games. And then, like I was saying, Electronic Arts went through like those phases where they had real thick-cased games, and then they had real thin-cased ones, and then they kind of went to normal ones. One of the thin ones is The Immortal. And I had this game for the Nintendo, the NES. And you can see how skinny this one is. It's even skinnier than a standard Genesis case. And it's even a little taller. It's just the weirdest thing. I don't know what they were doing. I can understand trying to stand out on a shelf, but this was like the wrong way to do it. How about making more colorful spine artwork or something? I don't know. So yeah, I had this on the NES, and I absolutely loved it. It is an isometric adventure game where you're playing as this wizard who's in these dungeons looking for his teacher who has gone missing, and has like sent him a message saying like, come and help me, I'm trapped. And it's absolutely nuts. I mean, the music is fantastic in the NES version. The music is pretty cool. There's a ton of trial and error going on in here because there's traps all over the place, and you need to learn the patterns to walk around these areas without falling into the traps, because once you fall into a trap, it's really hard to get back out. But there's enemies to fight and everything like that. Magic spells. There's like puzzle things you need to do. Like certain items you'll pick up, you have to use them in specific ways to get through the level. It's really fun. It was like I said, it was a trial and error style game, and I absolutely loved it. I would always try to get further and further in the game. And then my buddy Gary got the game, and I watched him play through it in one sitting. And I was just like, look at this guy. What is it? What's happening here? I don't get it. But then when the Genesis game came out, I really wasn't interested because I'm like, I've already played that game before. I don't need it. Turns out, I think this is the Immortal itself was a port of a Macintosh game or a Mac game or something like that. And the Mac game was very gory, and when the game was ported over to the NES, it was heavily censored because we can't have that kind of stuff on the NES, even though in Bionic Commando we watched Hitler's head explode, and in Golgol 13 we watched Duke Togo get his dick sucked. So, but this kind of stuff, nah. And yeah, so when I found out that this was uncensored, like the original game was, I picked up a copy at Funko Land, brought it home, and holy crap, did this game blow my mind in the violence department. Because when you do fight an enemy, the game zooms in, and now you're having this fight where the enemy can go and you can dodge his swoops, and you have like a exhaustion meter that goes up. The more you attack, the more your exhaustion meter goes up, and then when that person is exhausted, then you can use the advantage of him being tired and attack for a little while. Then as your exhaustion meter goes up, you let him do a couple of swipes and let him get exhausted again, kind of thing. So it goes back and forth. But when you get that person's health down to nothing, you do like a coup de grace. And in the Nintendo game, it would like cut before that would happen. It would cut away. In this, like, you'll cut the guy's head off and you'll see it fly off of his body and like land on the floor and splat across and slide across the floor. You'll cut the top of their head off and their brain will just be pulsing inside. You'll cut one in half and their lower half will hit the ground and the intestines will spill out. You'll cut one vertically in half and you see their body split. It is nasty, and I love it. Outside of that, it's the exact same game as the Genesis. It's just now the gore has been put back in. It plays exactly the same. The puzzles are exactly the same. All the patterns are exactly the same for the traps. I love it. It is so great. If you haven't played this, I highly recommend it. I put this on my Diamonds in the Rough for the Genesis video for a reason. It's great. Great. Guess you live forever. Can you really work on your figure? Peter, how dare you? How you doing, Peter? Next up, we have a multi-plat. I wish I had the Super Nintendo one, but I haven't been able to find it, and I haven't really been interested to look. But I'm okay with this. But it's the Incredible Hulk. This one is just a side-scrolling beat-em-up with the Hulk. There's nothing special about it. You can switch between being Bruce Banner. When you're Bruce Banner, you can use a gun. When you're as the Hulk, you basically just have your fists and you're just pummeling everything. And it's okay. It's a decent beat-em-up. It's for a comic book license game. It's not terrible. Could have been a hell of a lot better. Later, Hulk games did improve as graphics and console abilities got more advanced. But for this, it's not bad. But like I said, if I did find the Super Nintendo version of that, I would probably get it and get rid of that one. I also talked about this in my Diamonds in the Rough on the Genesis, and that is Insector X. It is a horizontally scrolling shmup where you're playing as essentially the Wasp from the Marvel movies. You're playing as like some dude in a wasp suit, and you've been like shrunk down, and you're going through these stages shooting all these larger bugs, like giant wasps and all that, but they shoot back. It's like robo-bugs, kind of like the Darius games are all robo-fish. These are robo-bugs. And it's a lot of fun. I've been like learning that Sage's Creation as a developer made some pretty fun games. They did Devilish, which I really love. This is pretty fantastic. I need to look for more Sage's Creation games in the future for the Genesis, because I think they only released games for the Genesis, because I don't remember there being anything that they did for the Super Nintendo. So it's pretty fun. I like it a lot, which is why I put it in that video. If you like a cool twist or spin on the standard shmup formula, that one's for you. I know. I was saying, how dare you make a bad joke? I didn't think you were making fun of me. I make fun of me. I have loved this game ever since I first played it at Funko Land. This was one of those games I went to Funko Land with the intention of buying a new game. Didn't know what I wanted to buy. I just wanted a new game. And I would go through the games they had in store and just test them all on their little testing stations. And I ended up settling on James Bond 007 The Duel. And I was like, well, makes sense. It's a licensed game. But this one is a side-scrolling platformer / run and gun where you're playing as Bond. You're not going through any specific movie or anything like that. It's just like a new adventure as Bond. And it's pretty fun. The music in this game is absolutely fantastic. Like, it is amazing. Sometimes it doesn't even sound like it's coming from the Genesis sound chip. It's that good. But this was coming out during the time when Timothy Dalton was Bond, which is why he's on the cover. And I like it a lot. You go through a whole bunch of different like scenarios where you're like underwater, you're going through a forest and stuff like that. And you're infiltrating bases. I love it a lot. I play this one a lot too. I was going to put that on my Diamonds in the Rough, but I was trying to stay away from licensed games as much as I could. Here's a fun one, Jewel Master. I think Captain Algebra has streamed this already, but it is a side-scrolling platform, not really a platform, like a run and gun. And the cool thing about this is kind of like Gunstar Heroes, where if you can combine the different weapons that you have available to create new weapons. This one is you have rings that you put on your fingers, and when you put different combinations of rings on your fingers, you get different weapons or different abilities, which is pretty cool. And you can see right there, there's like the hand page where you're attaching the different rings to your fingers, and you get different weapons out of it. You get different like fire, ice. I think there's like lightning or something like that. But it's really cool mechanic, and the game itself is really fun. I like it a lot. Kind of like I'm trying to think what the name of the Alicia Dragoon a little bit, but without the lightning shooting thing. Licensed games time. We got Jurassic Park. Everybody that I knew that had a Genesis when this game came out owned this game. Like Jurassic Park, if you weren't around, if you were a little kid, one thing, but if you were like a teenager or an adult when Jurassic Park came out, you do not understand how far-reaching the influence of that movie was. It was everywhere. And like everybody wanted everything that had to do with it. It was like this super phenomenon. And the year that I came out, like I had just graduated high school when this movie came out. Like I had my graduation party, and then once that was over, my friends and I went and saw the movie. And I was super excited about this game, the Super Nintendo game, every game based on Jurassic Park, because I thought I still think the movie is phenomenal. The game, on the other hand, this one is not the greatest. It feels very rushed. It also tried to do some cool things with like the way Mortal Kombat was photographed actors put into the game, the rotoscoped or whatever. Same thing with this. It's like photographed actors, and it doesn't work very well. The animation is super choppy. The controls aren't great. The platforming is not good. It was fun at the beginning. When I first started playing this, when it first came out, I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. But then the further I got into it, the more I was like, man, this is just frustrating as all hell. And I kind of put it down and never really went back to it. Genesis does when Nintendo don't. Mm-hmm. But it's all right. I don't hate it. I don't love it either. It's just kind of in the middle. I will talk about my favorite Jurassic Park game when I get there, and that's going to be on the Super Nintendo video. Yeah, it was like literally everywhere. You could not go anywhere without Jurassic Park being there somehow. That James Bond game, I highly recommend that James Bond game, though. But like I said, it does look like a weird Photoshop job, even though that is his body. It's like they just made his head look bigger for some reason. But the game itself is super colorful and super fun. I highly recommend it. So we had Jurassic Park. Now we have Jurassic Park Rampage Edition. So the reviews and the gamers' reaction to that Jurassic Park game was not good. The weird thing was, it was like Sega actually listened, and they were just kind of like, okay, we made some mistakes. We'll try to fix it. So this is like the upgraded version of that game. It is basically a new game, but they tried some different things. It's still a platformer where you're playing as Alan Grant, but the graphics are different. The stages are different. It plays a little bit differently, but it's basically the same style of game. If you didn't know any better, you'd think it was the exact same game, but it's not. It's just there's some different things done to it to improve it. And I think this is also the one where you can play as a raptor. So it's a better game for sure, but still not great. Receiver of art. Yeah, that picture that Jen made for Mondane is great. Kid Chameleon, I do not remember if I had this back in the day. I think was it this one? Yeah, I think this is the one that I never really had. I had Green Dog. I never had Kid Chameleon back in the day. And it's a platformer, but the mechanic is that you get these different like helmets, and you put a helmet on, and you become a different type of character. And that'll give you abilities to get through the stage. Like there's a helmet you put on, you become like a knight. I don't remember what the other was. There's like a Freddy man or a Jason Voorhees like hockey mask, and you get like a machete weapon kind of thing. But it's okay. It's pretty fun. I like it a lot. Oh no, Decap Attack was the one that I never had back in the day. This one I think I might have had. I can't be positive. This one I remember not leaving much of a... If there's anything, this one didn't leave enough of an impression on me that I remember if I had it or not. I don't think I did. But whatever. I was talking about Hokuto no Ken. Here's the American version of it. This is the last battle, which is the exact same game. It's just all the gore has been taken out. But it is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. And yeah, there's not much to it. They changed all the names of the characters, so nothing Fist of the North Star related is in here. But it's the exact same game. Yeah, I have 2 copies of the exact same game. One just has exploding heads and one doesn't. Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Yep, I just watched that video today. I had it playing on in the background when I was reorganizing my Blu-rays and stuff. Because I forgot what a bunch of movies a bunch of people had chosen for that video. It's been a while since I released it. I haven't watched it since I released it, so I put it on in the background so I could listen to all the other people talk. And I was like, oh yeah, Peter picked Secret Life of Walter Mitty. They're just making us wait until tomorrow for their video. Ooh. Cap, this might be for you, but we got the Lawnmower Man. This is a port of the Super Nintendo game. I think this came out like a year after the Super Nintendo game. I think they were trying to figure out a way to adapt the Super Nintendo game to the Genesis, because the Super Nintendo game, 50% of it is crazy Mode 7 graphics. So the game is half side-scrolling run and gun, and then half 3D into the screen stuff. So you play as either... It will soon be mine. So you're playing as either Pierce Brosnan's character or the woman who lived next door. Whatever. And you're trying to collect these CDs. You destroy items in the environments to get CDs. Sometimes you kill enemies. You'll get some CDs. You collect enough, and you like upgrade your suit to the VR suit, and that gives you an extra hit. You can upgrade your weapon, or your gun, and all that. And you're really just looking for these cyberspace ports to get into cyberspace. And then when you go inside, there's all these different types of mini game things you can do when you're inside. One of them is you're on a cyber sled, and you're just trying to do like an obstacle course. You're trying to avoid things that are popping up in front of you. The other one is you're playing with, you have like the gun in your hand, when like they showed it in the movie where the chimpanzee was doing the war simulation, where like one of his hands was a gun, and then he had his regular hand, and he was like shooting these red enemy things that are like popping up like a gallery shooter type of thing. You do stuff like that. You do ones where you're trying to shoot Job when you're floating around and his head's popping out at you, and you got to shoot him enough times and fly through the grid that he's trying to open up to escape cyberspace. It's weird. There's a lot of different play types in here. The game style, like I said, it changes a lot. So like you'll do like the side-scrolling shmup stuff. You do all these different cyberspace stuff. Next thing you know, you're driving a helicopter. Next thing you know, you're doing like a chase scene in a car that's like horizontally scrolling. It's weird. It goes all these different places. It's very strange. But the Super Nintendo game is really fun. And like I said, it has a lot of really cool effects in it. They try their hardest to recreate that in the Genesis game. I don't think they're completely successful, but at least they tried. I think that's why it took another year for this to come out for the Genesis. But it also came out on the Game Boy? What? The music on the Super Nintendo version is great. The music on this one is not so great. And this also is like half the events of the movie, and then like the last half of the game is like a sequel to the movie, which is nuts. It's good, but it's not great. I used to play it on my Nomad when I was working nights at the limousine place in the late 90s, and I actually beat it on the Nomad, which surprised the hell out of me that I was able to do it, because I still can't beat the Super Nintendo one. But would you really want to play... If you want to mow a lawn, you just get that lawnmower simulator. I mean, that's logic. Next up, we have Light Crusader, which is another game by Treasure, but this is their take on like a action RPG. It's isometric. view, and it is kind of fantastic. I haven't put a whole lot of time into this one either, but I played it quite a bit when I first added it to my collection to make sure it worked. I was like, this is pretty fun. I need to come back to it. Years later, still haven't because, that's me. But have to have it because of treasure, so there's that. And then we have Cap. This is still available at that half-price Books by Me. Lightning Force. This is actually, what is it, Thunder Force 4? But they renamed it Lightning Force, and Sega released this instead of Renovation. Sega released Thunder Force 2, Renovation released 3. Sega released this, and then Working Designs released 5 for the Saturn, which I have a repro of. But whatever. Lightning Force, horizontally scrolling shmup. If you've played any of the Thunder Force games, you've played this. But it's pretty fantastic. It's very, very difficult. I know everyone says that part 3 is pretty easy once you get the hang of it. No, I still can't beat it. I don't care what y'all said. Oh, sorry. Lightning Force. Sorry, Mondane. Lightning Force. They still have it, Cap. I can always go back and get it. They still have it, and you need it. It's cool. Not my favorite in the series. Even though I can't beat the third one, I still think the third one is my favorite. Here's a repro. I wish I can remember the name of the Etsy shop where I got this. I don't think it's on any of the paperwork that came with it. No. Anyway, so this was a game that was set to be released, because I remember seeing it in the magazines and stuff. It was supposed to come out for the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, and it just got canceled at the last minute. So the game was basically complete, and then the plug was pulled, probably because it's not good. That is Lobo, the DC Comics anti-hero character. He's like the bounty hunter from outer space. So what this is a one-on-one fighting game. And you play as Lobo or any of these other characters who I do not know who the hell any of them are, because I've never read a Lobo comic in my life. And the game is not good. It's like playing Eternal Champions. It's kind of unresponsive. I want to say that maybe when the game was canceled, it was just going through like some final testing, and they hadn't worked out like bugs in the controls and stuff, because it does not control very well. And the graphics are like Donkey Kong Country, like the pre-rendered Silicon graphics type thing. And they're very choppy and weird looking. And I think there's also a repro of the Super Nintendo version of this out there somewhere, but I don't really care. I was like, I got this one dirt cheap because for some reason Genesis repros are cheaper than Super Nintendo repros are. So whatever. It's like I said, it looks dingy. The graphics are not the greatest. The music sucks. It's like Ocean, man. Ocean. Whatevs. Sega misspelled it. Lightning Force. The only reason I knew about this game was because of Brett Weiss's book. I can't remember the name of it. It was like a 3-part book about it covers like specific periods of time in gaming and all the games that came out within those years. And the one that I have is the green one, and this was in it. And I was like, I don't remember hearing anything about that game. And then I found it. Oh no, I got this from Radical Reggie. Radical Reggie was selling it on his Facebook page, and I was like, I want that. I've been reading about that in my that book by Brett Weiss. I want it, and he was like, okay. So I picked it up off him, and he gave me a deal. It's Marvel Land. And honestly, I could not for the life of me tell you what the hell this is. It looks like a bunch of different mini games. Yep. It just says 8 megs of total excitement, passcode, infinite continues. Leap into adventure as you use powerful jumps to smash his scaly warriors, or the bad guy, whatever. Multiple warp zones propel you through the park. You'll never be sure where you may end up. Taking all the thrills of an amusement park gone wild. Whatever. It sounds like a platformer then. Whatevs. Like, I haven't really spent a lot of time with this one, so I can't really go into the details. This one I can. I put this on my Diamonds in the Rough for the Genesis, and that is Mazen Saga Mutant Fighter. So back in the day, around the time that this came out, I had just started to get into anime. And I saw this sitting at the Funko Land. I saw the cover, and I was like, ooh, could that be anime-esque? Maybe that is based on an anime we didn't get here in the U.S. I wants it. So I bought it brand new, knew nothing about it, and I fell in love with it. I think it is absolutely fantastic. And it's 2 different play types. You've got these side-scrolling beat-em-up stages, which I think are absolutely fantastic. And then when you get to the boss, the action zooms in, and now it's a one-on-one fighting game. Those parts are not the greatest because the enemy that you end up fighting always has the advantage because he has reach. You really don't. Your sword only goes so far past your character when you swing it, but the enemies, they have projectiles and all this kind of stuff. And it's always kind of tough. And I always struggle with those parts, but I managed to eke my way through. The beat-em-up sections I absolutely love. I think they're absolutely fantastic. The music is fun. I love the graphics and how colorful it is. Yeah, the boss battles are a bitch. But I absolutely love this game, regardless of the fact that the end boss battles are a pain in the butt. I think it's still fantastic. I play that one a lot as well. I used to have like a tactic down where at least the first 3 bosses I could get through pretty easily, but then the last couple of them are a real pain in the ass. Amazing Saga, it's really expensive now, but ooh! So I did not know this game existed until I can't remember if it was I saw it in some video somewhere on YouTube. I was like, why did people think this was a good idea? Why would you want to license that? We've done it before for the NES. And I guess there's a Genesis port of that also out here. I'll talk about it. When you see what it is, you'll know what I mean. But why would you want to license out a restaurant or license a restaurant name for a video game? That makes no flipping sense to me. So I had no clue that this existed until like the mid-2010s when I got back into collecting and I was watching Metal Jesus and all these other videos. I think Pete Dorr might have talked about this. And then I found out who developed it, and I was like, oh, I don't care what it's a license for or what it's licensed from. Because of who developed it, I want that, and I want that right now. So when I ended up getting my bonus from work a few years back, this is probably like 2017, 2018 or whatever, I found a copy of this, and I got it for a very good price off of eBay. And that is McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure. Why anyone would want to make a straight-up McDonald's game, I have no clue. Then I found out that Treasure developed it. And I went, oh, it will be mine. And it's a side-scrolling platformer where you're playing as Ronald McDonald, and he has like a cane that he uses, and it's kind of like playing Darkwing Duck for the NES, where there's like those hooks all over the place, and you can like hang off of them to jump to higher platforms and stuff. He kind of has like, I don't know if it's I can't remember if it's an umbrella or if it's just a straight-up cane that he uses to hook onto things. And it's actually a really good game. But it just happens to be based off of McDonald's, and you're playing as a scary-looking clown that loves to sell cheeseburgers. But yeah, like I said, once I found out Treasure developed it, I was just like, oh shit, I have to have that. And it's actually pretty rad. I was pleasantly surprised when it showed up in the mail, and I played it for a little while to make sure it worked, and I was like, it's kind of fun. Why? I don't know. It has no business being this fun, but like I said, Treasure knows what's up. So this one is a special thing that it's a repro, but it's like an official repro of a game that we never got over here that was released in Japan, never came out over here at all. There's been repros I could have bought over the years, but I just always put it off. Thankfully, I did because I got this like official one. And I got this from Limited Run Games. It's from Retrobit. It's Mega Man The Wily Wars. And I got the collector's edition. Yeah, the collector's edition says right there under the title. And it has like this lenticular cover that shows Mega Man, like what he looks like underneath the skin kind of thing, like an X-ray. And here's the game itself. Comes in a standard Genesis box, with a pretty awesome cover. So I always assumed this was a port of the Mega Man arcade game that I had played at a nickel arcade by my hometown. And the arcade game was essentially just boss battles. It was like, pick the boss you want to fight, and then you had a one-on-one fight, which is just like the regular boss battles in the original games, with like one of the bad guys. So I was like, I want to fight Woodman. Okay, you're going to have a one-on-one fight with Woodman. That's all you're going to do. No, it turns out that this is a remastering or a reimagining of the first 3 Mega Man games all in one game. And I had no clue. And I had brought up when I first got this in the mail from Limited Run when I was doing my pickup stream, someone was like, no, that's not what this game is. This game is just like the first 3 Mega Man games just remade for the Genesis. And I was like, oh, I had no freaking clue because this game never came out over here. I didn't know. I didn't play it. So what does it come with? Well, you get the game itself in the case, and it comes in this pretty awesome, I must say, cartridge that is translucent, but it's blue with like glitter in it, and it has a label on the back. The label on the front itself, around where it says Mega Man: The Wily Wars, it's like metallic paint, which is kind of awesome. I do believe that the wraparound artwork is reversible. Comes with a manual, full color manual, and this envelope. If I can get it out here without destroying it. Comes with this envelope, this power-up envelope, and it just has like a bunch of stuff in here. So out of 20,000 they produced 20,000 copies of this. I got number 11,618, and it has this like sticker book in here too, which is lame as hell. There you go. Yay. Whatevs. And that's it. That's in there. And then the box itself, I think, has some extra tchotchkes in it also. The box it comes with this outer plastic protector that has like some Mega Man artwork like etched into it. It also has like what's inside on the back. The box has the lenticular artwork on it, and it opens up like this, and it shows all the bosses that you're going to end up fighting. And you can also change the artwork in the front to like Proto Man, and he's got his own like lenticular artwork. You can switch it up in the front, and on the inside, I think there's stuff in here. And I'm trying not to destroy this thing. Yeah, there's something in here. It comes with a poster. Which is very nice. Oh, it's double-sided. Ooh. So you got the artwork that's on the Genesis cover, and then the one that's on the cartridge is like Mega Man and like all of the Robot Masters and stuff. Which is kind of cool. I'm not going to hang that up or anything. I'm not that big of a Mega Man fan. So there's that. Put this back together. Should probably put this envelope in here instead of leaving it in the cartridge, because it serves, or in the box for the game, because it makes no sense why I would have it in there, since I'm going to end up destroying it once I start opening this up to play it all the time. Okay, do that. Put this back in the protector. Snap. Boom. Yay. So, super thrilled that I got this finally. Like I said, I had many opportunities over the years to buy a repro from all these different sellers, and I always put it off because I'm like, that's a really popular license. You know, Mega Man is a popular property. Ugh. It'll always be there. I have time. And then, luckily, I didn't, because then I wouldn't have got this really awesome collector's edition of it. So, there's that. There's a Game Gear Mega Man. Yep, I know about the Game Gear one. Wily Wars is only on the Sega channel here in the US. The arcade games you're thinking of is Mega Man Power Battles. Yep. Gallopy Ghost has that. Yeah, the like I said, that arcade that I used to go to by my hometown always had the Mega Man arcade game, and I played it a lot just because it was Mega Man, and I knew the property, and I would just, and it only cost like 2 nickels, so why not? Mega Turrican. This is actually a port of Turrican 3 on the Amiga, from what I understand. I love Turrican. It's a side-scrolling run and gun that's kind of like Contra, but it's like futuristic. You play as like this bounty hunter guy, and you have in this one, in the first one, you had like your standard gun. You can upgrade. You can get all these different types of weapons, and you have all those types of weapons here too. You have like your standard shot, then you can like multiply it a couple of times. You have one that's like electricity beam. You have one that's like these balls that roll around and attach to platforms and stuff, and they can roll up walls and all that to take out bad guys. And you also had like a beam that would shoot out of your gun, and you can like move it around the stage and take out enemies too. Here you have a hook shot. It's like a rope that you can attach to platforms, and then you can like swing to higher platforms. It takes a little while to get used to controlling that, but once you do, it's pretty useful, and it's really helpful during boss battles, trust me. But the thing about this one I wanted is because I love the music from the Turrican games. Chris Holzbeck created some awesome music from the original Commodore 64 and Amiga games, and he always ports the music directly to the other console ports, like the one on there's a standard Turrican on the Genesis, there's Super Turrican on the Super Nintendo, which is my favorite of all of them. I don't know about Super Turrican 2 since I've never actually played that, and then there's Mega Turrican. He like reports all of his music to all of the different console versions, and they all sound fantastic. I absolutely love the Turrican franchise, so I had to have this. What does it say? Editor's Choice Gold from Electronics Gaming Monthly. Well deserved, because Turrican is a fantastic franchise. I love it. Then we have Mercs. I remember watching Megadan streaming this one day, and I was like, I've always been interested in that game, but I've never actually pulled the trigger on it. And it's a top-down run and gun. I think it's a port of an arcade game, but your character's actually kind of tiny. And it's like playing Ikari Warriors or Commando, but it's just like really hectic. And I was watching, like I said, watching Megadan play, and I was like, that looks amazing. I need to have that. And then I came back from the Midwest Gaming Classic, I think it was 2019, and I didn't spend all my money that I had set aside for the convention. So when I got back, I was just kind of like, well, since I didn't spend all that money that I set aside, what could I do with it? I could either put it back in my bank account, or I could buy more games, which is exactly what I did. I went online and I bought this, and I bought another Genesis game that we might not see. No, we'll see it tonight. Because it's in the same. Yeah, it's like 3 games away from now. I bought this and another game you'll see in a bit, and I'm not sad that I did. Absolutely fantastic shooter. Mercs is fun. Mercs looks super awesome. I loved it. Next up we have, I'm kind of pissed I didn't notice this when I bought this, but Midwest Gaming Classic in 2017 was the last time the convention happened at the hotel. I had set some collecting goals for that con, and I was like, I'm not walking out of here without Ark the Lad collection on the PlayStation 1, Phantasy Star on the Sega Master System, and Michael Jackson's Moonwalker on the Genesis. Like, I will not leave here unless I have them. I will get them, and I will make them appear if they're not. That's how dedicated I was to getting them. And I found a copy of Michael Jackson's Moonwalker at the con. I found all 3 of those games, actually, like pretty much right when I got there. This was the only one that I picked up, I think, halfway through the time that I was there that day. Like, halfway through the day. I'm rambling. I'm tired. And I was super thrilled, and I just looked at it. I went like, oh, okay, the artwork looks okay. I was like, it's got the manual, it's got the cart, everything looks legit. What you're asking for it is a fair price. Here you go. And I didn't notice until I got home that my hand had been covering up where the UPS code was, and someone had cut it away at some point. There must have been some sort of a thing. Send in the UPC code and get something. So I didn't notice it because, like I said, my hand was covering it when I was looking at it, and I didn't notice it. I was really mad at myself for being that careless. But whatever. The game is fine. This is not the original version of the game. There are 2 versions of this game out there. The first version of the game has Thriller in it. Like, when you're playing through the different stages, there's different like versions of Michael Jackson's popular songs. And when you get to the graveyard level, in the original version that was released, Thriller was the song playing over that stage. Turns out there's some licensing thing going on with that song, and later revisions of the game had to take it out and replaced it with Another Part of Me from Captain EO. What? Why? But whatever, this is the version that has Another Part of Me. There are hacks out there. I might buy one of them that actually has Thriller in it instead of Another Part of Me. But it's a side-scrolling platformer, kind of run-and-gunny, where you're playing as Michael Jackson, you're trying to rescue all these kids and take out Mr. Big. I actually prefer the arcade game. The arcade game is fantastic. I beat it at the... I can't remember the name of the arcade we went to when I was at Mo Game Con. Captain Algebra was there. So was Peter. I have my high score actually on the cabinet itself. I beat the high score of the game while I was there. I wish we got a port of that. But the game that we did get is pretty cool. I like it. It's just not nearly as fun as the arcade game. But eventually I'm going to get a version of that has Thriller in it. What's up, Retro Coop? How's it going? Perfect timing. You have the original since you bought it day one? Yeah, I might have had that version. I can't remember because I had it back in the day when My brother had the Genesis. I don't remember if it was the one with Thriller or not, because back then I didn't know stuff like that. You know, the magazines I was reading didn't say, oh, by the way, Revision 2 has another part of me and not Thriller. Yeah, there was some licensing snafu and they needed to take Thriller out of the game, so they revised it with a different song. It's strange, but yeah, this is the one that has another part of me. Eventually I'll get the original. So I was talking about the McDonald's game and why someone would want to make McDonald's games stumps me. But then I remembered, oh yeah, they did that before because there were those Mick and Mac games, the Global Gladiators, which are essentially McDonald's ads too, because you're collecting golden arches in the games for points. This is available on the Nintendo as well. I think it's just called Global Gladiators on the Genesis or on the on the Nintendo. I can't talk. But yeah, it's a side-scrolling platformer / run and gun where you're playing as these two kids who are like eco warriors, I guess, but they use like slime to attack. I don't get it, but whatever. It's a big ad for McDonald's. It's okay. It's by Virgin. Tommy Tallarico does the music for this, and it's actually quite cool. The music is rad as hell. Yeah, I need to get that original version. There's hacks of the original Shinobi out there too that have Rambo and the Terminator in it and all that I need to get. When I bought Mercs, I said I bought another game at the same time that I've been wanting to add to my collection, and that was Midnight Resistance. This is a port of a Data East arcade game, which I've never actually played, and it's a side-scrolling, like horizontally scrolling run and gun, and you're always collecting these keys and stuff like that. I don't understand why. I don't remember why. I haven't played this a whole lot, but it is pretty fun, and there is like a hack or a code in here that gives you like this weapon that basically makes you invincible, and you can just run through the game, never taking a hit ever again. It is the weirdest thing. I saw someone do it in a video, and I was like, I want that game. It'll be an easy beat. But yeah, Midnight Resistance, I've been wanting it for a long time. I almost bought it at the Midwest Gaming Classic, but it didn't have a manual, so I put it off. And then when I got home that night, I was like, oh, I'll just buy it off of eBay. Why not? Next up is... I got this off of a Facebook group. I might have gotten this from Felix the Brett. I can't recall. But it's the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I never watched Power Rangers back in the day. Like, I was past the age of interest. You know, when this came out, I was already I think a junior in high school, maybe a senior in high school. And I was just kind of like, that's kid stuff. I ain't watching that crap. But the games themselves are actually pretty cool. And I always get confused which one of these is which, because there's some that are fighting games, there's some that are beat 'em ups, and it's like you would think that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, okay, there's a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game on the Super Nintendo also. They would be close to the same kind of thing, but they had different developers. This one is the one-on-one fighting game. The one on the Super Nintendo is the beat 'em up. I always get them confused. But yeah, I'm not a big fan, but this game is not terrible. It's not great. It's not awesome either. Then we have the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. I did get this at the Midwest Gaming Classic also. And this one is like completely metallic. Everything about it, even the back, is like this copper metallic paint. I love it. And this one is a beat 'em up. Like I said, I can never remember which one is which. Yeah, this one is the side-scrolling beat 'em up. And I do believe there are one-on-one fights when you come to the bosses and all that. I did play this one a great deal. This one is actually pretty fun. Here's another repro, and I wish I could remember who I got this from on Etsy. But the cool thing about them was they did manuals and cartridges. The only thing is the labels that they made for the cartridges never really want to stick. So every time I open one of these up, I have to re-stick the label on. Whatever. We have Monster World 4. This is actually part of the Wonder Boy series. This is like Wonder Boy 4. Where you have a female protagonist this time, and it's a side-scrolling action RPG type thing or adventure game. And it's actually pretty fun. If you've played Wonder Boy and Monster World, or what is it, Wonder Boy and the Dragon's Trap, it's kind of similar to this. I had been hearing about this for a long time on different channels on YouTube that I was watching at the time, and I got really interested in it. And then when I found that Etsy shop that was selling all these Genesis repros of Japanese games, I jumped on it as soon as I could. And it's actually a pretty fun game. I need to play through it. Which is all the box for your Power Rangers. Oh, you only have the cart? And then we've got... Yeah. Yeah. It's about to go down. My faves. Might have something to do with that thing behind me. We got the Mortal Kombat. So, everybody knows, if you've ever watched my channel, I absolutely love Mortal Kombat. It's one of my favorite things in the world. I was so into it that I bought both the Genesis and the Super Nintendo versions at the same time when they first were released, because I knew each one was going to have their strengths and their weaknesses. And I liked it so much, I wanted to play them both to find out what they were and if I liked one over the other. So we all know that the Super Nintendo one was heavily censored. They took out the fatalities and just put in stupid shit instead. Instead of blood, it was like sweat coming off of characters. But the graphics were great and the music was great. The play control was a little weird. The Genesis one was also censored, but you can unlock the blood with a code that was not made secret. It was like everywhere. Everyone knew it. Only thing is, the music sucked. The graphics were not great. And it moved just a little, like the game itself moved a little faster than the arcade, which was a little off-putting. But this is the superior version of the two that came out for the home consoles at the time. I absolutely love Mortal Kombat. The first one is not my favorite in the series. The second one definitely is, but I played this one the most out of the two. I basically played the Super Nintendo version. I beat it with Liu Kang, and I don't think I ever played it again. But I played the Genesis one all the time just because this had the blood, it had the fatalities and all that kind of stuff. Didn't sound like the game. It looked like crap too, but I didn't really care. It was there. It was Mortal Kombat. Had to play it. Had to have it. Mortal Kombat. I need to look that one up, Cap. The PS4 remake. And because I was saying that the graphics were bad and the music was bad and like some of the environments were not in the game that were in the arcade and all that because it was like a memory issue, I found out about a year ago that there was someone who went back to the source code and fixed all those problems I was talking about. They added in more frames of animation. They fixed the music. They fixed the graphics. There's more frames of animation now. And that is Mortal Kombat, the arcade edition. And my buddy Toy Source Games released this. And it was one of the ones that he did with a manual. He doesn't do that very often. And the cool thing is his carts, he always does awesome things with his carts. The cart is transparent, but it has like these blood splatters all over it, which is awesome. And this is the better version of the original Mortal Kombat game. It has, like I said, the graphics have been improved, the music's been improved, all of the stages have been restored with more colors, more animation in the background. I think the background animations were completely missing in the original version. And all the secret stuff has been added back in. So you got the stuff going past the moon and all that, so you can fight Reptile. This is the way to do it, right here. This is the version you want. If I would hit up Eric on Toy Source Games on Instagram if you want to get a copy of this. I highly recommend it. It's the version to have. And then there's Mortal Kombat 2, my favorite, but not my favorite port of the arcade game. This is good. Super Nintendo one is way better. But this has everything in it from the arcade, all the secrets and everything. They learned their lesson when they made the first one. You know, don't do that kind of shit. Just put more effort into it. All the characters and everything are in here. It plays fine. It looks okay. The music is still kind of poopy. The graphics, like I said, have to take a hit because it's the Genesis. But whatever. But I have a repro based on that one too, and I got this from that Etsy shop whose name I cannot remember. And that is Mortal Kombat 2 Unlimited. And what this is not really in the same vein as the arcade edition for the first game. This one just adds in more characters. And you can see the character selection screen there at the bottom. Smoke's been added in. Rain has been added in. Kintaro and Shao Kahn as playable characters have been added in. And Jade also. And it's a new version of the same game. It plays and sounds and looks exactly the same. It's just that now you have a couple more characters to play as, which is fine with me. Even has a manual and all that. And like I said, here, like the label popped off again on this cartridge. Like I said, this place I went to on Etsy, like the labels are the only problems I have. They just never want to stick. But whatever. It's great. I like it. I'm glad I have it. And then we have Mortal Kombat 3, which I do not like very much. And I let all my friends know because I remember like when Mortal Kombat 3 first hit the arcades, I ran to my local arcade to be there for it. And I was like, day one, I was like, nope. I give them credit for always wanting to try new things in order to keep the game fresh. And what they did with this one was add in a run button that like initiates combos. If you hit the character you're fighting up against while you're running, it'll initiate a combo. You have to hit a certain sequence of buttons and controller movements to do like a predetermined combo or get it to work. I didn't like that. I like my own homebrew combos that I figured out on my own. I didn't like the characters. The redesigns on them didn't look great. I didn't like the fatalities. The fatalities were just stupid this time around. When it came to part 2, the fatalities were like graphic and nasty, and like some of them were like, damn, like Jack's ripping your arms off and letting you stand there bleeding to death. That was horrific, but I was like, that's awesome. In this one, it's like, what does Liu Kang do for his fatalities? He drops an arcade cabinet on you. What does Jax do for his fatalities in this one? He grows to a giant and then steps on you. What is happening? I don't get it. I did not like the animalities. I did not like the fatalities. I didn't like anything about this game. I thought the graphics were poopy. The only character I liked in this was Cabal. And that was about it. I'm not a fan of this one. Even Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, I was not a fan of, even though they put a bunch of characters that they left out originally back into it because of the fans complaining that where's Scorpion? The Sub-Zero we have in this sucks. Where's the original Sub-Zero? But they put him back in also, classic Sub-Zero. It's just, I do not like part 3 at all. They introduced the babalities in part 2. And like I said, when I've talked about this before, when it came to Mortal Kombat 2, because I was so huge into part 1, and so was a friend of mine, my buddy Gary, that I was always talking about in the Nintendo streams. Gary was into martial arts. He was taking martial arts, and he was pretty high level. And because of all, and since we're in Chicago, Midway was in Chicago. Mortal Kombat, the games, are made in Chicago. Through his connections through martial arts, he ended up like meeting a bunch of the people from the games. He ended up befriending a bunch of people in Midway. He kind of like, I think it was like Ed Boon. He knew Ed Boon. So he would get like the insider scoop on like where they were testing Mortal Kombat 2 in the arcade. And it turns out there's this arcade. It's not there anymore. I don't think it's been there since like the mid 2000s. It was called Diversions. It was like Lincoln Park. No, Lincolnwood, I think. It was like if you're in Niles, Illinois, and Niles is like right on the border of like Chicago. It was like we drive through Niles, you get past it. It's like right when you got into Chicago, the arcade was there. It was called Diversions. And he had learned through them that they were testing the game there. And he would take me there all the time. And I ended up going there by myself even more because, like, Mortal Kombat, I have to know. And I watched the game develop over a space of like a month. Baraka wasn't in the game when I first went to Diversions. Baraka was a space cowboy. And they took him out because it didn't seem to fit into the mythos of what was going on. I was like, where did this guy come from? What does he have to do with Mortal Kombat? And they turned him into Baraka. Turned out he lives in Outworld. The space cowboy thing did end up getting reused in the current games with Aaron Black. Except he's not from space, but he is a cowboy. And I watched the babality thing evolve too because there were glitches in these test versions that they had at this arcade. So somebody learned that if you're playing as Baraka and you get to the point where you can perform a fatality or whatever, you could do the babality on your enemy. And normally the game will freeze your character. Like you'll do the babality, it'll go babality, and then your character will do his little stance, like I won. Like Baraka would do his little crossed arm thing. And there was a glitch that if you did the babality as Baraka, you could still move around. And somebody figured this out that you could still do moves. So the guy that was playing it the one time I was there when they first introduced Baraka would do the babality on every character that he fought. Every time he fought, he would do the babality and then walk up to the baby and do that scissoring move where he would like, it was like the thing that you would use if somebody was jumping at you. It was that scissor flurry or blade fury. And the weird thing about the glitch was if you did that to the baby, you would see all the blood flying and then the baby would disappear. So it looked like he chopped the baby up into nothing. and it was really funny. And like the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh my god! I hope that's not going to stay in the game." There's going to be the trouble that the original Mortal Kombat got in with the government. I was like, they're going to come down on this like you would not believe. It just turned out it was a glitch, and they took it out because the next week when I went, it was gone. So I was like, I wish they left it in as like a joke. You know, like there's some code you can put in because there's all these different codes in Mortal Kombat 2 to like do secret fatalities and stuff, especially with like Shao Kahn, or not Shao Kahn, Shang Tsung. Like there was a hidden fatality he had that if you held down a high kick during the final match, like if it was like the second round and you won the first one or whatever it was going to be the one that you won. If you held down high kick the entire match and you beat your opponent and you took like a step back from them and you let go, you would turn into Kintaro and punch the top half off of your opponent. And that was like something I just learned randomly from somebody at the arcade. And they left that in. I wish they had done something to leave that whole Baraka Babality fatality thing in there. That would have been really cool. Anyway, back to the games. Now we got Mystic Defender, which when Captain Algebra streamed this not too long ago, I found out this is a sequel to Spellcaster on the Master System. I had no clue. It's a side-scrolling platformer where you have all these different magical attacks and you can power them up and all that, and it's really fun. I do remember it being kind of tough at times when I was trying to play through it. I never beat it, but I enjoyed it. I had that back in the day. Got that from Funkoland. Got this from Radical Reggie when I picked up that Marvel Land game also. And he was just kind of like, well, I have this repro also if you're interested. And he's like, I'm trying to get rid of it because I'm never going to play it. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take a new game. And that was Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water. This did come out in Japan. This is the translation or translated port or hack or whatever it is. And from what I understand from Reggie, it is like part RPG and part graphic novel or interactive novel kind of thing. And it's based on an anime, from what I understand, which I've never seen. So when he said that, I was like, okay, I'll take a look at it. And I haven't put a whole lot of time into it, but it worked and it seems like fun. So I just need to set aside some time to play it. That one level where you can fall into the lava is the worst. Yeah, I remember that might have been the level that I was having problems with and I was trying to play through it too. So you all know me. I'm not a sports game fan, but I do have some sports games in there because there are some that I will actually play. One of them is hockey. And I have one hockey game for the Genesis, and that is NHL PA Hockey. Burp. NHL PA Hockey 93. And if I remember correctly, this is the one that has the blood in it. So all these Electronic Arts hockey games have like a fight mechanic in it. And if you knock out an opponent when you're fighting, when they hit the ice, you'll see blood come out onto the ice from where their head hit the ice. And they showed it in the movie Mallrats, except they made it look like it was coming from a game on the Saturn. No, they were playing the Genesis. I think this is the one that has it. If not, it's NHL 94. Like I said, I think this is the one. I remember asking around, is this the one with the blood? And somebody told me yes. But I haven't played it, so I can't really say because, sports games. Hey, Cap, you have a loose cart for this? I bought this when I was out with you at what's the name? Video Games Then and Now. That bastard never put my game in here. Hey, set this aside. Learn something new every day. I told you I hadn't played it. There's a reason why. The guy forgot to put the cartridge in here. I'm not going to go over there and bitch him out now because it's been 2 years since then, so he probably wouldn't remember, and I probably don't even have the receipt anymore. So, there's that. I'll trade you the cart for my lawnmower man. I was talking about those games I was getting off of Etsy, those repros. Well, the first repros I ever bought were from this, and it actually says it on the packaging, was from this Etsy shop called Fan Brew Games. They had some repros of some Japanese games that we never got over here. So one of them was a homebrew, I think. I think I'm going to talk about that tonight. Yeah, one of them is like a homebrew. But I wanted to get this because of what it is, and it is Ninja Gaiden. There was a Ninja Gaiden game on the Genesis in Japan. We just never got it over here. This ended up getting ported to the Game Gear. So if you played the Game Gear Ninja Gaiden game, it's this. Only thing is, the cartridges that they use are super cheap and flimsy, and like this thing weighs nothing. Like if I let go of it, it'd probably float. And the cases that they use are like these clear, cheap-ass cases that you would probably get from a rental store, and their artwork looks like absolute shit. Like, you can't really tell in the stream, but it looks super pixelated, and it's just not good. It looks like shit. But I was an idiot and ordered from them one more time because I had just ordered this alone. I was like, okay, well, the game works. I was playing it on my Retro Freak, and it worked perfectly fine. And I was like, yeah, well, if that's the only thing is like the things look a little bit cheap, as long as the games work, I'm okay. And then I bought from them again, and I said I will never do it again. But it's a side-scrolling platformer beat-em-up type of game. It's nothing like the Nintendo games or anything like that. It's not even a port of the arcade game. It's just kind of like playing, like a Shinobi game, honestly. It's not that great. Okay, I'll just pick one up off of eBay. It's going to be dirt cheap if I do. That is a universal game case. I was going to say, yeah, it's like something you would get at a rental store. It's like dirt cheap. For what I paid for that, this is what I get, and I was kind of pissed. But they had a lot of other stuff I wanted, and I was not seeing it at any of the other repro Etsy shops. So I went back to them one more time, and you'll see when I get there what they are. I think I'm going to talk about both of them tonight. Yeah, both of them. Next up, we have No Escape, which is a Psygnosis game. I wanted to get this number one. It's a licensed game based off of a movie that not a lot of people remember from the 90s, but I do because I loved this movie. The guy that directed GoldenEye, this is the movie that got him GoldenEye. He directed Casino Royale also. But yeah, Psygnosis, and it is a platformer, kind of like playing Prince of Persia a little bit. You're a prisoner on this island of criminals, and you're just trying to escape. And I haven't spent a whole lot of time playing it, but I got this at the Midwest Gaming Classic for a really good price, and I wasn't going to pass it up. So, yeah, I need to spend more time playing it. But I liked what I did when I tried it out to make sure it worked. So there's that. And here's another repro I got, but this is a homebrew I got from my buddy Toysaurus on Instagram. And I was like, yeah, cool. I could use another game on my Genesis. And it comes on this really cool, transparent, yellow, almost glow-in-the-dark looking cart. And it is called Omega Blast. And it is a vertically scrolling shmup. And there aren't any, like bullet hell shooters weren't really a thing back on the Genesis. There was just your standard, shmups. This is a bullet hell shooter for the Genesis. And it's really difficult and it's hard, but I love me a good difficult shmup nowadays. So I absolutely had to have this. When he basically in his post was like, hey, homebrew bullet hell shooter for the Genesis. Bye. And it's not easy. It is pretty difficult. I think I need to bust out my Sega CDX to see if this actually does not work, but we have Onslaught, which is by Ballistic / Accolade. Came in these really cool cardboard boxes. I bought this at the Midwest Gaming Classic, I think in 2018 at Make Sense, the Make Sense shop, which is like a resale shop that's out there that I used to go to all the time. And it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up that is supposedly ultra, ultra violent. All of these games back in the day, like Genesis or Sega didn't give a crap about violence in their games. But I hear that this is like super, super bloody. And even the guy at the store was like, I love that box art. And I was like, yeah, totally. It looks like something Frank Frazetta would do. But this game won't work on my Retro Freak for some reason. So I either need a new cartridge or I need to break out, break out my Sega CDX and see if it works on that. If not, I need to get a new cart. But whatever. So I haven't been able to play it. Let me see here. Okay, next up we have the Ooze. And I remember having this back in the day, and I thought it was pretty fun. And I was going to I was going to talk about this in the Diamonds in the Rough video that I did for the Genesis. And when I was capturing the footage for it, I was playing it, and I'm going like, I don't think I like this very much. At least not as much as I did when it first came out. So I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm not going to add this to my list. So I went back and went through my collection. I was like, okay, I picked this other game instead. I think I picked Todd's Adventure in Slime World to talk about instead, which is a fantastic game. And what you do is you play as a pool of sludge, and you move around, and you're just trying to absorb other things into yourself and escape the stage and make yourself bigger if you possibly can. And like by taking hits and all that, your character shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And once you're down to nothing, dead. Only works on certain consoles. That could be it. And yeah, I was not having a lot of fun when I was playing this, but I remember loving it back in the day. I think it was just because it was something different, but now I'm playing it. I'm like, yeah, this does not control all that well. So yeah, there's that. Next up, we have Outlander. Found this at the Video Games Then and Now store by me. They had this in the expensive case, but it wasn't expensive. This was like $30 or something. So I was like, yeah, whatever. And it's also available for the Super Nintendo. I wish I got it for the Super Nintendo, but because I never see this game either for the Super Nintendo or the Genesis, I decided to get it while I was there. And what it is an inside the car racing game, but it's like Mad Max. And there's like enemies all over the damn place. You need to run them over, outrun them, all that kind of stuff. And it's okay. It's not the greatest, but you know, I love these like post-apocalyptic like movies and stuff like that. So this is right up my alley. So there's that. Here's a repro that I got from the Good Etsy shop. I don't remember the name of it. I think it was like Retro Arcade or something. I wish I could remember that, like I said, but they don't exist anymore. And it is Panorama Cotton. And Cotton was not a thing over here. We didn't get any. I don't think we got any Cotton games except recently for like the Switch and stuff like that. Because I have some now for like, I think I have one for the PS4 and I have like one for the Switch. But like back when the Genesis and the Super Nintendo were around, this stayed in Japan. But the reason I wanted to get this is it's like playing Star Fox. It's an into the screen shmup. And you're basically a witch riding on a broom into the screen, shooting down other enemies and stuff. And graphically, it is insanity. I am surprised this works, and like the graphics are as smooth, like the scrolling is as smooth as it is. It blew my mind. I'm like, you would think that, like Sunsoft apparently released this in Japan. You would think that Sunsoft would be like, let's release that in the US, even though it's not a property that they're familiar with. I think the gameplay and the graphics alone would get it enough attention to make it a big, a hot seller. So no, we didn't get it at all. But once I learned what it was, I was like, I absolutely had to have this. Yeah, Chris loves Mad Max on the NES. I will punch you in the throat. And here we have a brand new game for the Genesis. It only took 6 years or 5 years or whatever for it to show up after I paid for it. That's Paprium. This is from Watermelon Games. They did Pierce Solar, which came out long before I got back into collecting, so I completely missed out on that for the Genesis, which was like a brand new RPG for the Genesis. I eventually did get a copy of it for my Dreamcast, so I didn't completely miss out on it, but I did miss out on the original Genesis version. But this is a beat-em-up, kind of like Streets of Rage, that was newly developed for the Genesis, and this took way too long to come out. There were so many problems, I guess, they had with the making of it, like people leaving, they ran out of money. The guy that was like the director of the project, like kept on wanting to add new features in, but they didn't have the money to do it or the resources to do it, but he still wanted to add all this stuff in. So yeah, it's absolutely nuts. I don't know what this means. I think I have number 791 out of 1,989. And it's been signed. I think it's a 791 underneath the signature. And this has some weird-ass packaging. It comes with some weird-ass stuff. It opens up in a strange way, because this is like a digipack and not like an actual case. So, like, it opens up like this, and then it opens up like this, so you can get at things. Oh boy, I don't want to bend the paper or the cardboard, but okay. So what it comes with is an ad for like an arcade stick that they were going to end up selling. But when it came to how long it took for this game to actually show up in the mail, from when I bought it, because I bought it like in 2016 or something, I paid for it back then. And it didn't show up until like last year or something. I'm like, I'm not buying anything else from these guys ever again. I don't think they're actually making anything after this. There's a bunch of stickers. I guess they're trying to make another game for the 32X. Shockwave? Yeah, I'm not buying that. There's no way in hell. Here's the manual, which is pretty thick, but it's on some seriously nice paper, glossy paper. Here's like a postcard. In Paprium, winners do drugs. And a poster that is double-sided. You got the artwork of the game with the 3 characters you can play as, and also a map. Let me put all this stuff back. Carefully. Ever so carefully. I don't want to bend the cardboard or rip something, because this thing is fragile as hell. This is like so over-designed, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, I would have just preferred it came in like a standard Genesis case. And the game itself comes in like this pill case. And my cartridge is rattling. It wasn't rattling when I got it. This is probably a paperweight now. Okay. Whatever. Like I said, it's a beat 'em up, and it's like an 80 meg game or something like that, which was like unheard of at the time. And it's like supposed to be super colorful and all that. Well, I guess I'm never going to find out now because, the game is broken. I have to open it up and try to reattach it or something. Son of a bitch. Can't win. The game will still work. You can remove the plate. Okay. Next up, we have Phantasy Star 2, which is one of my favorite RPGs. I love science fiction as a genre. So having a sci-fi RPG right up my alley. I was watching Hungry Garaya play this, and she just was not having it. Because this game requires a lot of grinding. Like serious grinding. Like an obscene amount of grinding. But back in the day, I didn't know any better. I didn't know. Nowadays, we have quality of life improvements in RPGs that make that kind of not necessary. But back in the day, like, come on. It was a thing. You ever played Dragon War? You ever played Final Fantasy? I mean, you had to grind. But I never played the original before I played this. But I don't care. I absolutely loved it. So I had to get this back in my collection. And I need to play through all 4 games in the series one after another. And that will probably take an entire year because these games are long. And I do not have the giant, like the hint book that comes with this. I need to look for that. It's a metal plate that's not needed. The plate was worthless. Oh, okay. It was shielding for the PCB. Okay. Whew. I was like getting pissed when I heard that because when I got it, it was not rattling. And I remember a bunch of people online saying like, oh, there's something loose in my cart. And I was like, and some people were saying mine's fine. And mine was fine. I guess over time it just fell off. Shit. I'm just glad that it's not, doesn't mean it's broken. And then we have Phantasy Star 3, Generations of Doom. I hear this one is not good. I never played this back in the day. I didn't even own it. But I hear that it's just like, it doesn't feel like it's complete. I guess is the most common complaint that I have. Like the second one had a beginning, a middle, and an end. This one is kind of like, feels like when you get like a trilogy, and it's like the middle part of the trilogy is usually the underwhelming one. This one is kind of underwhelming from what I understand. And this one is like super, super grindy. But whatever. I'm still going to play it when I do my little Phantasy Star playthrough chain combo thing. I'm gonna run a train on these games. Crappy thermal glue, yeah. And then we have Phantasy Star 4, which I understand is like the best game in the entire series. This one like covers like multiple generations and like multiple characters and stuff like that. And it sounds amazing, but I will not play it until I've played the other games because I understand this is connected to them in some way. So I'm going to start with 1 and work my way through all 4. So, yeah. Next up, we have a game that Metal Jesus talked about, but the thing was, everyone when I showed this off in my original collection video, we're talking not the live stream, we're talking like back in the day when I first started my channel. Everyone was like, "Oh, you only have that because Metal Jesus talked about it." I was just like, "Bitch, I own this before Metal Jesus even talked about it." I got this in a lot on eBay, and that is Philios, which is a vertically scrolling shmup where you're playing as like a Greek god sitting on top of Pegasus. And you're shooting other mythical creatures from Greek mythology. I learned about that, and I was like, I need that game. And then Metal Jesus talked about it in the video. Yeah. But yeah, it's fantastic. I almost talked about this in my Diamonds in the Rough, and then I remembered that Metal Jesus had talked about it in his Hidden Gems video, and I was like, no, I'm not going to double dip, because I think I already talked about one game in my Diamonds in the Rough that he talked about in his. So I wasn't going to double dip on that. But Philios is a fantastic shmup. I absolutely love it. And then I was talking about this with Captain Algebra when we were out game hunting in Wisconsin a couple weekends ago. And that is Pit Fighter. Pit Fighter on the Genesis is probably the best version of this game on a console. The best overall version of Pit Fighter, surprisingly, is on the Lynx. But if you want to get Pit Fighter for any console, and that's a version of it that's actually playable, this is probably the one you want to get. I had the Super Nintendo one back in the day, and man, was I pissed when I brought that game home. That game is like unplayable. Should have known Mindscape released it. But yeah, this is the best version of this game. And what it is like it's almost like a test for Mortal Kombat. It has like the digitized actors, just like in Mortal Kombat. It's a fighting game, but it's like an arena fighting game where it's like you play as like one of 3 different characters. One is like a Muay Thai fighter, one is a boxer, and one is like a wrestler. And you're like in like an underground, like a kumite kind of thing. And there's usually like 1 or 2 people you're fighting at the same time. Some of them are like dominatrixes with whips and stuff like that. Hot. But in the arcade, it was okay. It wasn't great. The controls were even kind of shitty in the arcade, but it got ported to every console out there, even the Game Boy. I cannot even imagine playing this on the Game Boy. Nope. That would be a complete mess. I would probably, like, my eyes would probably cross. But out of all the ones I have played, this one is the one that plays the best outside of the Lynx game. But you can kind of see the way it is. Like I said, it's an arena fighting game, beat 'em up, and it's okay. But it's not great. It's still not great. If it only had the manual. Oh, yeah, you saw that at Make Sense, didn't you? I forgot that we went to Make Sense this time, didn't we? Holy shit. I forgot that when we actually went there. I didn't buy anything there. That's probably why I didn't talk about it in my stream. That's why I don't remember that we went, because I didn't buy anything while we were there. Here's a licensed game that I love, and I was going to talk about it in the Diamonds in the Rough, but I chose against it. And that is Predator 2. This is an isometric action game where you're playing as Danny Glover. How many games can you say you play as Danny Glover in it? Not many. And it's not really like a focus of the Predator's not really the focus. It's like in the movie, Danny Glover, he was a cop. He was dealing with like a gang problem. There was like these Latin gangs and these Jamaican gangs that were like at war with each other. That was what the main issue was. And that's what the main focus of the game is you going up against the gangs that are at war in LA. And eventually the Predator will show up. And because like, even though like you're always taking out drug dealers for like the first few stages, the Predator shows up in like the form of his laser target. Like if you are taking too long getting through the stage, you'll see his like little laser target start coming after you. And if it touches you, you blow up. Like he shoots you from the air, from the sky. Eventually you'll fight the Predator and all that. You'll be in the alien ship from the end of the movie and all that, and you'll take him on head on. But for the most part, you're fighting drug dealers. And it's not bad. It's actually pretty cool. The music is really fun. And it's actually got a port to the Master System also, which is strange. But I like this game quite a bit. The same people that developed Alien 3 on the Genesis developed this. So I think it's pretty cool. And then we have Prince of Persia, which is a port of an old computer game, cinematic platformer, I guess is the term for it. And I own this. I've owned this many times on many different consoles, played many different versions of it. There's one on the Super Nintendo. This is the one that I ended up finding at, I think it was the CD Recyclery or whatever it was called that was by my work that closed like 5-6 years ago. And they're selling it dirt cheap, so I picked it up. And it's a decent version of the game. Looks a lot different. The graphics are definitely way more colorful than they were on the computer version that I used to play back in the day. But it's pretty cool. I like it. It's a decent version of it. So that Fan Brew Games, the first place that I bought repros from Etsy when it came to the Genesis. This is when I said, screw you guys. I'm not buying anything from you anymore. So you can see here that the Ninja Gaiden that I bought from them came in this like cheap-ass rental case. The cartridge feels super cheap and super flimsy. So then I ordered from them again. I ordered 2 games. I think it was only 2. 3 games. There's another one down there I haven't talked. I'll talk about next week. So I bought 3 more games from them, and that's when I said, I'm done with you. You guys suck. I don't understand what this is. So I'm expecting all the games to show up in these like rental cases. Nope. So I bought a game called Pringles the Game just because of the title. I was like, what the hell is this going to be? I don't know. I need to have it. And then the game shows up in this like super thick Electronic Arts style thick 2Cs box. And it didn't come with a manual. And once again, super cheap and flimsy cart. And I was like, what the hell? I ended up finding that retro arcade website or Etsy shop because of these games that I bought from them. Turns out that the retro arcade or whatever the hell it was called was selling the exact same repros in better packaging. But you could break them down. You could just buy the cart. You could just buy the case. You could just buy the manuals. You could buy all 3 together. You could buy it with just the cart and the box without a manual, whatever. You could mix and match. I ended up going there and buying the manuals for all these games that they were selling that I picked up from this Fan Brew site or shop. And that's how I found that they were selling all these awesome repros. And I was like, I'm buying from these guys from now on instead of these people. So I ended up getting the manual for this through them. I wish it had their name on it, so I could tell you what their frickin' name was. Shit, it doesn't say. I wish I knew. I cannot remember what their name was at all. Anyway, not important. So what Pringles the Game is kind of like playing Cool Spot, but it's not a platformer. It's like you're playing as this face, the face of Pringles, and you're bouncing around and you're collecting icons or chips. And you just can't fall. You have to always find something to bounce off of in order to get through the stage. You're going vertical, you're going horizontal, you're going all over the place. If you miss a jump and you fall to your death, you lose a life. And that's all it really is. It's like a collecting game. And it was like a home brew that somebody put together, and I think they just did it for fun. And it's not bad. It's not great either, but I had to get it just because it's a Pringles game. Why would I not want this? That's the weirdest license I think I have. But when the new packaging showed up, I was like, I'm done. I got this from, I think, Toy Source Games also, because it comes with the manual. And that is Sayo Blade. This is a port of a Japanese game. And this is like a visual novel style game. Wouldn't be able to play normally because in Japanese, but it has a translation patch in it, so it can be played in the US. So when he said it's been translated fully, I said, give it to me. I need it right now. And I haven't really put a whole lot of time into it. I need to, because it sounds fascinating, because it's like a cyberpunk thing, and I love cyberpunk. So absolutely need to play it. It looks very Blade Runner-esque, kind of like Snatcher. So absolutely need to have it, or needed to have it. Then we got another Psygnosis joint, and that is Pugsy. I think this also has a Sega CD port. And it's a platformer with a weird, I don't even know what the hell this character is supposed to be. It looks like a blob of jelly. But it's a platformer, and like normally the Psygnosis games. The controls are just a little bit strange, but it's okay. Their platformers are usually decent, but like I said, there's always like some control issue to it. But it's all right. Can't complain. Was trying to get all those Psygnosis games. I might still do that. Here's another game that I bought from that Fan Brew Games with the shitty packaging, and it's a port of a Japanese game that we didn't get over here called Pulse Man. I think this was on the Sega channel, but we just never got like a physical version of it over here. And it's a side-scrolling platformer with like a new mascotty type character. It's okay. I remember people were talking about it a lot. I ended up getting the manual from that Retro Arcade or whatever it was called. I wish I knew their name. But I haven't played it enough to really comment on it. I just remember it's a really fun platformer. It has like an electricity thing going on in it, and that's about it. Oh, you can travel through cables as electricity to get around. That was the hook. And then we have Quackshot, which is another one of those Disney games on the Genesis. And this one's actually not too bad. This one is actually kind of fun. It's definitely not Fantasia, but I keep forgetting, is this the one? Yeah, this is the one where you have the suction or the plunger gun. And you use it to not only attack enemies, but you use it to ascend to higher platforms that you can't really reach. So you shoot this plunger gun at a wall, and it'll stick to the wall, and it has like, the stick sticking out. You can jump on the stick to use it as another platform to jump up higher. It's actually not too bad. It's actually pretty fun. I like this one a lot. I keep forgetting if it's this one or it's the one I have for the Master System that has the plunger gun. And then I looked at the cover, and he's holding it in his freaking hand. So, yeah, that's the one. Game Freak made it. Oh, Pulse Man. This one I almost didn't want to buy, but I bought this when I think it was the first time I went to visit Rocket Sauce in Wisconsin, and we went out game hunting. And I almost didn't buy it because I've always assumed that this was the light gun version, or the game in this franchise that required a light gun. And I don't have a CRT. I don't have a light gun for this console or the other console, which ended up being the one that really does need the light gun. But we're talking Rambo 3 on the Genesis, and there's also a Rambo 3 on the Master System. And I knew one of them, and I always assumed it was this one, was the one that required the light gun because it's like a gallery shooter. And it turns out that's the Master System version. This one is two different play types in one. It's a commando-style game, top-down, where you're playing as Rambo, kind of like the First Blood Part 2 game that came out for the Master System, which is really fun. And then when you get to like a boss area, you go over Rambo's shoulder, and you can attack the boss in the background with like your exploding arrows. And Rocket Sauce was like, no. This is the one that you don't need a light gun for. That's the Master System version. This one you can play, either or without it. You don't need it. It's not required to have a light gun. That's the Master System one. I'm screwed up my words because I'm tired and my throat's dry, and there's a piece of tape on here for some reason that I can't get off. Whatever. I played this one. It is actually quite fun. And then the last game I'm going to talk about tonight is Ranger X, and I also talked about this in my Diamonds in the Rough video for the Genesis. And this is a side-scrolling run and gun that you would think was made by Treasure, but it was not. This was actually made, I think, in-house by Sega. And you play as this robot character that has like this sentient sled thing that accompanies you, and you can like ride on it, and it gives you extra firepower. Otherwise, it like fires in the background on its own. And it has a lot of really cool effects. I thought it was like a Treasure thing because of the way the effects work in it. But it's not. It surprised the hell out of me. And I love this game. I played this all the time. I had this back in the day. This was like one of the games that required the 6-button controller for the Genesis. And I had one back in the day. I bought it day one because I was like, I need this to play Mortal Kombat, motherfuckers. What's up, Tim? How's it going? X-Men 2. That's pretty good. Ranger X. Yeah, I love this game. As much as I love Mazen Saga Mutant Fighter, I think I like this one more. But this is fantastic. I absolutely love it. And I cannot recommend that one enough. It has, like I said, so many cool effects. And then it just, even though you're doing kind of the same thing every level, the way the levels are designed, every level seems kind of fresh and different. Like it requires a different set of skills to get through it. It's kind of strange. And that first boss is insane. That thing covers the entire damn screen. It's awesome. I love it. So that is part 2 of my Sega Genesis collection. Next week, we've got 2 more shelves worth of games to talk about, and then we can move on to a different console. But stay tuned. Tomorrow I have another short coming out. I'll release it probably in the mid-afternoon. I think you'll get a kick out of that one. It's another 3 games you should have in your collection type of thing. I haven't beaten any games lately to do another 60-second review, but that might be changing pretty soon because I'm pretty close to beating Valfaris. And I'll be back next week, 8:30 p.m. The only reason I was able to do 8 o'clock tonight was because, number one, I ended up calling out of work today because I wasn't feeling great. I'm not really like sick. It's like a stomach thing that I have issues with. But I've been going to work a little bit earlier than normal this whole week, so I was going to be able to do it, at 8 o'clock no matter what. But next week we're back to 8:30 for the streams. So next Thursday, 8:30, part 3 for the Sega Genesis live streams, and then tomorrow we got a new short coming out. So stay tuned for that. And then since I have all of you guys here right now, I have a question for you. So I talk about like the D&D stuff that I do on the side. I talked about like in the pickup video that I just did last week. I showed off some new D&D books that I had added to my collection. And I'm going to be starting up a new campaign that I'm DMing where we're using Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And when I was, last few months when I was finishing up my old D&D, that's not really D&D, it was my Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but my old tabletop RPG campaign, I was streaming it on this channel and didn't really get a lot of views. I didn't really expect it to because they're like 5 hours each. But I do want to stream this new D&D campaign that we're going to be playing. And because it's starting from the beginning, like it's a brand new thing. And I wanted to ask, should I stream them here or should I start a completely different channel to stream them? Because like I said, it didn't really look like there was a lot of interest in them here. So I'm wondering if I should just start a whole new channel specifically for that. So I wanted to put that up and ask if you guys had any opinions on the subject. If not, I can put like the question up on my Twitter page and ask there too, see if I can get a consensus going. So let me know what you think. Would you be interested in watching me and the Game Grinder and Mondane here playing D&D? Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying, like, does anyone actually want to see it? Is the question. I don't know if I'm like ruining the goal or the what the channel's about. Am I like by streaming that here? Is that considered like that's not what I come here for? I come here for video game stuff and maybe some movie stuff. Stream it here, okay. I mean, like I don't really want to create a new channel, but if I did, who would sign up for it, kind of thing. So yeah, okay, I'll stream it here if that's okay with everybody. I got to talk to the group to see if they're okay with me streaming it once we get everyone together. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe within the next month we might start playing. I'm still working on character stuff with some of the players and all that. So it's going to be pretty fun. I have some really wild ideas that I want to do for our first adventure. So we'll see how it goes. So keep an eye out for that. It's probably about a month or two away. So until next week, I will see you then. Chris, the old ass retro gamer, out. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe. See you next time.